Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan, and welcome to the latest edition of our entertainment show. This month, we're all looking about cult classic TV series that have left their mark in the entertainment industry and which will stand the test of time when we look back on decades to come. Our special TV series this month we're looking at is Gotham. So far, we spoke to a number of the cast, and I'm delighted to be joined by another cast member there today. He played 32 episodes out of the 100 episodes in Gotham. He was a prominent member of Gotham's police force. He played the role of Alvarez, the one and only JW Cortez. And Jay, do you sort of look back at your time in Gotham in terms of fond memories? The 5 seasons, maybe 6 in terms of filming, and you almost sort of wish that it went on for another 5 seasons.
So much so. Thank you for that introduction. Yeah, Gotham in my young, quote unquote, artistic career is definitely at the very top. It's been such an honor to not only have been a part of the show for me and to be the first human to play Alvarez, but just to see how far reached it's been throughout the world, and just the impact that it's had on so many young people who still write to me and still reach out to me on social media and say how much they enjoy the show. That warms my heart. I'll tell you that I miss the folks not only in front of the camera but behind the camera. We became like family, and that's one of the sad parts about a show ending in that way.
And I suppose JW, the Alvarez sort of character, we all know other characters were played off, like Jerome Velasco was a pretext for an early Joker. We saw Edward Nigma, a pretext for an early sort of Riddler, or sort of such. We saw pretexts for everyone. But the Alvarez character, in terms of a background, in terms of the Batman sort of universe, you could always put your own spin and sort of take in that character, I could imagine, because there wasn't sort of much, or if not any, information apart from what the writers, the vision, maybe Danny Cannon had in his head.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there was very little to go off of. And I did find out that there was an Alvarez, Carlos Alvarez, that was part of the GCPD. It was part of the new Catwoman series, the comic book, the New 52, I believe it was called. And yeah, in it, it seemed that Alvarez was more involved with Selena, the Catwoman. He was hot on her trail. He was very much treating her like his #1 priority. And he was always kind of running into her in weird ways. And so that storyline didn't manifest itself in the show, but I always, quietly longed that we would have more interaction, the Catwoman and Alvarez. But yeah, there really wasn't that much to go off of. I did find myself, mostly being supportive of Gordon and Bullock and whatever it is that they were doing. And sometimes we didn't agree. And that did play out, and that was a lot of fun for me, JW, to bring that to the show. Alvarez was always there. Alvarez was always a part of the GCPD. He was, always running around the precinct, and sometimes he would join Gordon and Bullock out in the streets. And yeah, I think really, there was so much potential there, right? So much potential there to really kind of like see where Alvarez could have, in the comic books, I believe he rises up to the rank of lieutenant. So he becomes a prominent figure within the GCPD. So yeah, it was there. It's all there. And if you read the comic books, people say that I kind of resemble him. I say it's the other way around.
And JW, in terms of Alvarez in the GPSD, the Gotham Police Department, he was always sort of a mysterious sort of character, because you always were sort of wondering in terms of his backstory, in terms of was he swaying from good to bad, and he had, like we all saw, Bullock had sort of some dirty laundry. We even saw James Gordon had dirty laundry. So we're always waiting to see when Alvarez's dirty laundry was going to be exposed.
Yeah, early on, there was some hints of that, like this one episode where me and Bullock kind of get into it, and he's asking me for help to help find Jim Gordon, and I kind of reluctantly help. But I also throw in a line like, you keep looking out for me and make sure my wife doesn't find out. I'm like, that's interesting, right? What was Alvarez up to? Was he a bit of a ladies' man on the down low? And then obviously, Alvarez, he caught the virus, and I wasn't sure if they were going to keep me alive or not, because Alvarez takes a number of bullets from the guys in the GCPD. So, and then I also wondered, how do you come back from catching the Tetch virus? Are you the same person? Do you go down a dark rabbit hole? Are you now a bad guy?
They
Yeah,
did that with the captain in terms of that. So obviously, if they hadn't done that with Chief Barnes, obviously you were the most likeliest candidate after that.
I think so. I think so. And working with Michael Chiklis was a dream come true. I was such a fan of his from the Shield days and from the commish. But it was interesting, he came in and you're like, I could see myself playing the captain too, but then you see where it ended up. So you sometimes you're better off kind of like sticking around a little bit longer, even if it's not as prominent of a storyline.
And I suppose, JW, in terms of the set, the police room, in terms of Gotham, I imagine that was a shot a lot in the Signer Studios in New York. In terms of what was that sort of like if you walked into sort of sit in a room? Was it very much you could walk around it in sort of 5 minutes, or was it a big sort of layout altogether to resemble?
It was by far one of the most incredible productions to be involved in. I mean, the level of artistry, the painstaking details that they placed into the making of the GCPD, it was a throwback to like the old school precincts in New York City during like maybe the 70s, dark gray, very muted colors. But then when you looked up, it almost felt kind of like cathedral-ish, Gothic-ish, with these statues, these gargoyles looking over the GCPD, over the sergeant's desk, and these huge window panes and these long, drawn-out chandeliers, that were connected to these long chains. So the set itself was really remarkable. It was really beautiful. So yeah, you could kind of like come to the GCPD and automatically, with our amazing background actors, you're like, oh, this is a full-fledged precinct right here. But you're also, again, inspired by the level of artistry, and it's just amazing. I don't know if the set is still up. I heard that it wouldn't be. And I always said, man, that's a shame, because that thing could also probably double as a museum,
Yeah. And I suppose, JW, in terms of, we saw in Gotham throughout the season numerous sort of guest stars, and were you always sort of on edge in terms of every season, every episode? Obviously, you were in 32 episodes, waiting to see who might walk in the door for that sort of 2 weeks, who was going to appear on Gotham, and what sort of role they were going to be playing.
Yeah, all the time. And that's what's exciting. Me being a recurring character, I got to probably see a lot more than most, aside from the series regulars. So yeah, I mean, sometimes, again, I remember Michael Chiklis joined us, and I'm like, man, that's the commish, and then you see other people who would show up and then they'd stick around. I believe Morena, who, eventually married Ben McKenzie, and she played the doctor. I want to say she came on pretty early on in the production, and I don't know if initially she was going to be a series regular. She may have come on as a guest star, and then they kept her, and I'm glad they did. But yeah, I'm like, man, that's the chick from this movie and from that show, from Homeland and from Deadpool, and like Morena's a beast. She's done so much, and yeah, so it was great. I mean, the guest stars always are great to see them perform and bring their A game, but they also make you step your game up, because some really talented people showed up.
And I suppose, JW, you were an experienced actor, and there was an awful lot of experienced actors. But one thing that struck me was how polished the young actors were as well in Gotham. You had Claire Foley, who played Ivy Pepper. You had David Mazouz, who played Bruce Wayne. Cameron Becanova, who played Selena Kyle. Were you sort of in awe in terms of they played such prominent sort of roles, but yet how they were able to sort of carry that sort of weight on their shoulders, particularly David?
Oh, absolutely. There's a term, right? God-given talent. I believe that. These young kids haven't gone to some sort of conservatory or some really hardcore training, school. They haven't done that. I mean, I know that Cameron, she was a dancer, but then there's that God-given talent where, it's undeniable. And yeah, these young kids, they not only were they really are really good as actors, they're just tremendous listeners. We would always be talking off camera, and you wait for lights to be set up and whatever, and you start making the small talk. And sometimes I wouldn't see them for a few episodes, but when I came back, they're like recounting specific parts of whatever we were talking about. Like they're just incredible listeners. And I think that gift, that ability, allowed them to be really great actors, because that's 90% of this thing, right? Is you have to actively be listening to the other person and responding in a truthful way. So yeah, they're great. I still speak to them via social and text messages every so often. I'm just excited for the world to see what else they've got, left in them. They, obviously, being so young, they're going to be around for a long time.
And JW, you mentioned about the cast and the people behind the camera as well. I'm just sort of intrigued in terms of the stunt team that you had in Gotham, because some of the stunts that you pulled off are absolutely mesmerizing, and from grenade lockers to grenade launchers to burning down sort of buildings, in terms of the whole sort of sequence in terms of fight sort of scenes. So to see the stunts people and the stunts doubles and that, was that a sort of joy? Could you actually, when you were not on takes yourself, just go and sort of watch the stunt team and sit there with a bit of popcorn and a bit of Maltese and a drink and just say, this is just as good as watching something on your TV screen or something?
It's even better. It was even better. Yeah, I mean, much respect to the stunt community. I mean, the things that they're able to do. I remember one of the earlier on episodes, I want to say maybe season 2, Victor Zsasz comes into the GCPD and he tells everybody, get out, right? Get out. And we listen to Victor Zsasz, it's a bit of a standoff. He's there to speak to Gordon. And so he's on top of, I think it was my desk. He was on top of either my desk or the desk next to mine. And, they double with a stunt player, and the stunt, he does a backflip and lands like a gymnast would on like his 2 toes, And when it was all put together, I'm like, Victor Zsasz is a badass. Well, kind of, sort of, right? Because, but yeah, they actually used a stunt double for me when I caught the tetravirus.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just great. They're special people, and sometimes I feel they don't get enough credit, but they're awesome, and they make us look so badass.
And I suppose, JW, in terms of your own sort of career at the moment, what's on the pipeline for you? I hear you're in theatre at the moment, is it, in terms of, and what sort of productions are you working on? Are you working on any TV series, upcoming movies that we're going to see on our TV screens maybe later on the year in Ireland and UK, or maybe next year?
From your mouth to God's ear. I worked with a country singer recently named Kane Brown. I worked on a single, one of his remixed singles, a song called Homesick. So I got to sing on that. I sing as well, which was a bit of I didn't see that one coming, because I'm a kid from New York City, born and raised in New York City, to 2 amazing, Puerto Rican parents. I never really thought I'd sing country music, but it is what it is. It was a lot of fun. I worked with Miss Jennifer Lopez on a new music video she just launched called Lonely. Okay. I got to work with her, which was tough, really tough work, actually. I'm lying. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. So, I during the pandemic, I have been picking up the pen and paper, writing my story. The way I got into acting, I don't know too many other actors who have a story like mine. So I think it's an interesting one. I want to tell it.
You want to tell it. So we feel an autobiography is on the pipeline.
That's how it started, was autobiographical. I'm taking more more liberties with the telling of it. So it'll be inspired by my life, but I'm taking some liberties in how I want to tell it.
Yeah.
I think there's more flexibility in that. As awesome as I think my life has been, sometimes there are a lot of boring parts too. So yeah, but it'll definitely be inspired by my life, and the world would know.
And JW, in terms of, if you to share one particular story or one particular memory that's unique to you from your time in Gotham, maybe it was offset, maybe it was a day you were came in or something didn't happen, or something that you made you laugh or made you smile, and when you think back on maybe that character or think back of that day or scene or episode, you think, yeah, that was such a good story, or that's something that I'll always sort of remember.
One of my, and I had a lot of favorite people on that show, but one of my most favorite human beings on earth is Mr. Donald Logue.
Okay.
And Donald,
fellow Irishman.
Irishman, that's right, and shout out to all my beautiful people in Ireland. Yeah, I didn't know Donald. I obviously I knew his work. He's a tremendous actor with an incredible resume. So you never know, right? You never know when you meet your heroes or people you admire. You hope they're as cool as you think they are in your own mind. And I've got to tell you, not only is Donald super cool, incredibly genuine, but wow, what a brain. The man could talk to you about virtually anything. Military, I'm a military guy. The theater, he can talk to you about sports. He can talk to you about Cardi B, about hip hop, Wu-Tang. He can talk to you about books. Just anything. The wealth of knowledge and the amount of life that this man has lived is just incredible. So I really always looked forward to seeing him. I'd always come look for him in his room or in his trailer, and it would always turn into these these stories that he'd come out with, or just this sharing that he and I would have. And people would come knocking like, they're ready for you on the set, and we'd be like, yeah, just one more minute, so that was really, really incredible. And what I learned is, as series regulars, most people who aren't in the business don't really understand the level of commitment you have to be there every single day, 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week, working these 12, 14, 16-hour days. And, to do that for, that many months a year, where you're basically, having to come in and deliver and memorize and be personable and be, empathetic, and just the level of professionalism that you have to have as a series regular, I didn't really fully understand. I know I want to be one, but when you see that these folks are there every day carrying the show on their shoulders, I learned that a tremendous amount of respect was due to these beautiful artists. So I learned that as well. And he always said hello to everyone. I mean, everyone, and he memorized their names, and their faces will light up. And I'm like, I'm going to steal that and put that in my little book, my little arsenal here. And that's what I do.
JW, on that note, an absolute pleasure talking to you today, to relive your time and your memories of playing Alvarez in Gotham. No doubt one of the most prominent recurring characters throughout the 5 seasons, and he was still there to tell his tale at the end, and still standing. And who knows, he might make a rise through the ranks in terms of future off-spins or future projects in terms of the pipeline. Definitely. So he didn't meet his maker yet, but for the moment, JW Cortez, a pleasure taking part for you taking part in our Gotham documentary, and we wish you a prosperous 2021, and stay safe and keep well.
Thank you so much. Take care, y'all.
Take care.